Hi everybody, we're going to have another change from the figural lamps to some oldies that I've got. I may have put the odd one up in the past, I just don't know or remember, but I know there's one or two people who out there are interested in the old lamps, and hopefully they'll find a bit of interest in these. I'll do them one at a time. I've also got a 12-inch ruler which we can compare sizes. Anyhow, let's begin. Firstly, we've got a lamp from America. There's no name on it, so I can only guess who it's made by, either Westinghouse, GE. It's an oldie, and as far as I know, you can see the filament down there, it's not a photoflood lamp. I've tried it on 110 volts and it lights bright, yes, but I would say it's possibly 200 watts, certainly more than 150 watts, but it's not that extra brilliance that you'd get with a photoflood, so I think we can say it's a normal standard lamp. The length of it, well, there's my ruler. We're talking about 8 inches long, so it's a fairly large lamp, well made, and with a daylight colour envelope. I can't remember where I got this one from. Possibly on eBay. Anyhow, let's go on to the next. Now, something that is quite interesting and a bit of history. I've got two of these. There's the boxes that they're in. I'll let you read what it says on the slip of paper. Right, it's the Electric Lamp Manufacturers, Australia. Well, this lamp and its mate in that box was, as the certificates say, the last lamps made by that factory in Australia. There is an etch on the top, which I'm very careful not to even touch, because rubbing that off, any proof of this is a genuine lamp has gone. But it's a daylight lamp. It looks like 100 watts. See the filament there, it's a coil filament. Australia uses the bayonet cap, or the swan cap, and the lamp itself is typical of that style of lamp of that era. Of course, I have to remember that we're all getting older, and things I can remember years ago I thought were quite common, but unfortunately it's not the case. So there we are. That's a bit of Australian bulb history, call it what you will. Nevertheless interesting. Anyhow, moving on. The electric lamps, or as we know them, had several people who said they were the first to manufacture them. Chiefly among this was Edison and Swan. Edison was obviously in America, the Wizard of Menlo Park. I believe that name has now been taken over by another gentleman, Tesla, who they now say is a Wizard of America. But that's another story. Read all about it in YouTube. It's quite interesting. But getting back to the lamp, I just dropped the box. These two lamp makers, Edison and Swan, in England combined, and there became a Royal Edison motor lamp. Well, this is motor lamp, that's the type of bulb, but it was Royal Edison, and that was a way of getting round various patents and that. So anyone, and if you find these lamps, that is what it is. There is a connection from Edison and Swan. Now, getting back to the lamp, we'll pick it up. It's a motor vehicle lamp, or perhaps a motorcycle lamp. It's only 6 volts. There is an etch on the top which possibly does not show up. I don't know if that's going to show up or not. Anyhow, it's I've left the bottom bit on. It's a double pole small bayonet cap. What is interesting, it's coated with, I believe they call cadmium yellow. And in some countries, yellow or cadmium yellow was used on motor vehicles. I can remember France using this up to fairly recently. All their lights on their cars were yellow, which seemed very, very strange. And I believe if you took a car over to France to drive on holidays, you had to put in a set of these yellow lamps, or have yellow reflectors which you would attach to the front of the actual headlamp. Quite a bit of palaver, but that's all gone now. France now uses clear lamps like we do. Anyway, let's go on. I'm actually sitting down in a nice comfortable spot, so I don't mind sitting down and chatting. It's nice to be able to do this. Now, Criselco was a company, I believe, half owned by Osram and half owned by Philips. They were in the Bedford area. I think the company's still going, but they're making different things now. They don't make lamps. In fact, I don't think we make lamps at all over here. But it's Criselco. Now, the lamp we're looking at is that little one. There is an etch on there which is quite clear. Try and bring it up if I can. Criselco, 12 volt, 12 watt. It's a bus bulb. Now, you that know or were about in the 50s, 60s, the old London bus, although this bulb itself is not a London bulb, I have got the London bulb size upstairs. This is obviously for a bus, but of a indeterminate type. It's obviously running on 12 volts, so it's quite old. It's a bayonet cap. And yeah, the buses that used them over here or in London was the London Transport Route Master. I always wanted one of those bulbs as a kid, but I wasn't going to nick one out. It would have been quite easy to have unplugged it and popped it in my pocket, but I was very good. I didn't do that. Been rewarded by having quite a few of the London ones now. Anyway, the bus bulb, 12 volt, 12 watts, Criselco. Now, while we're looking at wrappers, I mean wrappers, not in the music or so-called music. We've got here a bit of history once again. Osglim indicator. Now, Osglim was the name that GEC, General Electric Company of Hammersmith, used on their neon lamps. I don't know what year we're going back to, but I would possibly guess 1940s. Excuse me. After that, they named them Osram, but this is Osglim, which was the neon type, and there's the actual lamp. It's patent GEC Limited, made in England, and that would be a normal, as far as I know, would be a resistive base, by the fact it's got 230 to 240 volts on, so this can be put into a bayonet holder on mains voltage and be perfectly okay. There's the electrodes. You've got a disc in the middle and one round the outside, and that would glow a gentle red or orangey red. Never been used. The reason I can tell that is the fact that the glass is perfectly clear. There's no darkening to the glass. There we are, General Electric Company, Osglim. Now, while on the name of Osram, we pick another lamp up here. Now, this lamp has blackened quite a bit, which was common with a vacuum rough service lamps. Now, I think you can see it. Look at the filament. It's like a double filament. It's not. It's one continuous filament. This filament has got a name which always slips me. There we are. Now, the reason it's made like this is because the rough service had an extra lengthy filament. The idea was to withstand vibration, could be used in a hand lamp, and it would take quite a few knocks before it would break. This lamp is actually a worker. I don't know if you can see the etch on the top. There is an etch on the top, but I don't know if it's going to show up. It's Osram anyhow. Osram, I think it's 40 watt. These were made at that time in 40 watts and 60 watts. Some of them had a zigzag filament. There's all ways of getting the lengthy filament in, supported well, so that it would withstand knocks and what's names. Now let's have a look. It's not. No, it's not fused. You look at the stem there. It hasn't got fuses as far as I can see. My eyes are still not too good. It looks to me like it's just it connects up with the base, which is a bayonet cap. This lamp, as I say, would probably be from the 50s, 60s. They still make rough service lamps, but are totally different. Well, I say totally different. They just look different. This is quite unusual. Anyhow, on to the next. We're going to deviate from lamps to starter switches. Now, the gentleman on YouTube who has shown quite a few of these, some of them had extra 2 contacts each side of the main contact, which I believe was just shorted out. It was like a contact. But anyhow, this is the older style. An idea of the size. The diameter of the canister is just over an inch. On it we have made in England, and the wattage of the tubes that it would use, or start, I should say, is in fact a starter. Fluorescent tube starter, old style. Now, talking about old styles, what about that one? This is a starter switch. I've got several of these. The other one's down here. The other two are down here. This is clear. It's this starter switch, I'd say, has never ever been used. On the old fluorescent fittings, and I'm going back before my time, 30s, 40s, and these were just plug in to a standard small bayonet cap lamp holder, and the purpose of that was to start the tube. It's quite easy. You've got a bimetallic contact in neon or helium, I believe. Helium gives, I think, no, was it krypton? I'm not too sure, but some of them were neon, which obviously glowed neon, orangey colour. Don't, whatever you do, plug this into a circuit which is just a lighting circuit, because what will happen, it'll probably go bang straight away because there's no resistor in there. But if it did light up, as soon as the electrodes warmed up, they would touch and it'll be a short circuit, which would be the correct idea for us to start a fluorescent lamp up, but it would not if it was just plugged into a holder. So once again, a bit of history. I remember these, being a kid, seeing these sticking out of ends of fluorescent lamps that are in stores. Obviously now you don't see them because they're all gone, and such an item would be quite rare. The other one that I've got is the same idea, but with the modern size starter bulb inside. So they must have made the other type, and these were made so that if you had the old fitting, you could still use it by getting one of these. Now that's the starter switch. Carrying on about funny things, let's have a look at that. I found in the box a Nixie tube. These are basically a neon lamp with many electrodes, each electrode representing a number and a common anode or cathode, the other side. So you would light this up. If you're running it on DC, then that will only light it one way, so you could light up each number in turn. Nixie tubes were very popular more than a few years ago. And if you look in eBay, you'll see Nixie clocks on offer, mainly from Russia. Interesting they are. You can, as I say, make them up with several of these in line to show the time. And they were used in various pieces of equipment. And I had it on as a bit of interest. It's got a valve-based type fixing. There are a Nixie tube. There's no name on this one. See the way it's cleverly made. Quite a lot of work has gone into these. You've got a side view showing all the numbers there, and it'll obviously be 9 to 0 or 1 to 0. Now let's get back. Let's have a look at this. Here we have a lamp. Let's take it out of this box. First of all, look at the name, Eveready. Most people think of Eveready as being battery makers, batteries, dry cells, zinc carbon or Leclanche dry cell to give it its correct name. Leclanche was a Frenchman who devised the dry cell and the wet cell. But Eveready, which the name was used in England with 2 R's and in America with 1 R, Eveready, and they, as I say, made batteries. They were under a carbon company, I believe. But as you can see, they also made lamps, Eveready lamps, and here's the lamp. It's a typical shape, and it's a twin filament. And the reason to have a twin filament is if this was used as a headlamp either on a motorcycle or a car, you could dip the actual beam. So if you were driving down a dark country road, you'd be on main beam, and you saw a car coming the other way, you would drop down to dip beam. And the way they do this is having 2 filaments. It's still used today, although more and more with LED lighting it's a little bit different. But there were twin filament, I think it's a 6-volt bulb. The etch, put it round the right way. The etch might show up, I hope it does. And the wattage is shown in candle power, which was an old way of showing wattages. So you get some very old lamps, they could well be in candle power. Now, moving on. We have a flicker candle lamp. Now this is slightly different shape. It came from America. Well, it came from America. It wasn't made in America. We can see the base. I think that's showing up. It's Japanese. Made in Japan. It's a neon lamp with the shape of like a flame, and these are in fact flicker candles. Several makers made these. The Russian ones were a slightly different shape to the envelope, and the ones that are sold over here in England was just a normal candle shape. This was made in Japan. I don't know the manufacturer. It might have been Toshiba, it might have been Hitachi, Matsushita. It could be one of those makers. Well made. And these last a very long time. They tend not to go black with usage. I don't know why, but they don't. The flickering effect sometimes dies down, and they turn out not very good when they start to get old. And that's the flicker candle. Here we have another lamp by Royal Edison. The etch is very, very faint, so you won't see it. I can't even read what the actual voltage is, so it won't be plugged in to see if it works. It does work. because what I do, I've got a meter, the good old Avo meter, which you set onto the ohm reading, which is already set on that, ohms and ohm setting, and you can tell whether the filament is intact. This case it is. I don't know if you can see the filament very well. Let's see if we can fiddle about with the camera. Might be able to show it, I just don't know. I will go back to one of the other two cameras I use now that the speed of the computer seems to be working a bit better now since I rang them up and they've done something to fix it. You can see the filament there, very, very faint. Anyhow, this is not a pip top, so it's a relatively modern, and I say modern with tongue in cheek, probably goes back to the 40s, 50s. The very old ones had a pip top, which I can show you later on some. Now, a bit more history. I do like my history when it's not about kings and queens. I'm afraid that type of history bores me to tears. I like history with electrical stuff, with inventors, what they've done, and so on. But anyhow, this history goes back to a very well-known store, which I remember as a kid and enjoyed going round. F.W. Woolworths and Company. They don't exist now in England. I believe the name is still used in Australia. But they had various sections which you'd go in and have a look at. The first section you'd go past, they were selling ice creams, which was very nice. Lion's Made ice cream. Anyhow, getting past the ice cream, if I was allowed to have one at the time, I was only a kid, walked in and as I say, the sections and counters were divided by glass sections to the counter, and the staff would be behind the counter selling stuff. Well, one section was electrical, and they always had a display of lamps, and this Sunshine, which got a beautiful etch, would be their name. A Sunshine lamp was sold by Woolworths, or later they brought another name in, Vesta. They were always single coil. They never sold coil. These lamps were made by one of the well-known firms, For Woolies, as they call Woolies, and you can see there's a fuse on one of the lines going down to the base. Well, that was Sunshine lamps. If someone's got a lamp with that name on, I know where that lamp came from. Good old Woolies. And they were nice shops as well. They were in all the main towns. My main one was in Morden, Surrey, or Wimbledon. And yes, I did like going round there. They sold all electrical stuff, plugs, sockets, bulbs, motor vehicle bulbs, you name it, they sold it. Plus all the other bits and bobs they did. And I also remember you could buy peanuts that were hot, and they were made hot by a device which used a carbon lamp to keep them hot. I can remember that. How I wanted one of those bulbs. Now, let's leave that. We're getting near the end, so I haven't sent too many of you asleep. Now, I must show you this. I'm going to bring this back.